We have a conversation between Claire McHugh, the CEO and founder of Axonista, and Guillaume Mercier, who works at BDC Capital. And for context, this is a great pairing because Claire's software, her company Axonista, turns any video stream into a store. And if you think that sounds novel, well, there's a lot of people watching video and shopping from it, like QVC or the shopping network. That's what they're using. So when you buy something on one of those platforms, you're using Claire's software to do the purchase and so on. They're basically the top of the funnel for video shopping. But it's a fantastic company that she's grown mostly organically. And she's now right on the precipice of having to ramp up and hire senior talent. Having a conversation with Claire is Guillaume Mercier. And Guillaume, who's now at BDC, where he works on industrial innovation, was actually the vice president of marketing at Essence, which is a very high-end boutique brand online store. He's also got a background as a producer and game producer and marketer. So we figured, given that he's with BDC Capital and understands the space a little bit, it's a great opportunity to let someone else have a chat for a change instead of just my voice. So please join me in giving a very warm Growth Week welcome to Claire McHugh, all the way from Ireland, Axonista, and Guillaume Mercier from BDC Capital. Good morning, Claire.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well. Great to see you again. And Guillaume, how are you?
I'm good, Alistair. Thanks for this.
Okay, so I hope I got the introductions right. I'm going to shut up and let the two of you have a fascinating conversation. I'll see you on a little bit.
You did. Thanks, Alistair. And the content before was great, very practical. I think that's all we can hope for. So let's try to do the same here. We have 20 minutes, so we'll try to get right to it. We won't talk too much about like the specific of Claire's business or me as an investor, but hopefully if you're interested in that, you can reach out to any of us. Claire, thanks for taking the time. Hiring at your stage can start to feel a bit overwhelming. You need to hire lots of people quickly. Culture, talent is key to your business. At the same time, you don't always have the perfect expertise to recognize that talent. So I'll ask you a few quick questions and then we'll let you expand on it. Can you talk how you structure your interview and your process? Is every interview kind of the same structure for any role, or are you very flexible, let your team handle it? How do you think about that? And do you do it in multiple rounds?
Yeah, so we do have a structure. We have this kind of base hiring process that we all use, and lots of team members are involved in our hiring process. It's not just me. But one size certainly does not fit all. For every role, you have to have some flexibility built into it for different roles. It's really important to move fast to win candidates, but at the same time, you need to hire in an intentional, thoughtful way. So getting the balance of these two things is really, really key. And as Justin was saying earlier, thinking deeply about the hiring strategy and getting alignment on that process before you start the hiring campaign is really, really important. Making sure your team has time to manage it. That's also it. Otherwise, it stalls.
Okay. And do you often give like a case or an exact business problem that you're facing and let the candidate come back with a solution? Do you use tools like this?
Yes. I find that really, really important in management roles, and giving them a real problem to solve and presenting that back to the team and in a short presentation is just, it allows us to have much more specific conversations and more useful conversations to get to kind of the root of what we actually want them to do.
Got it. Is there anything you do differently or specifically for roles where you feel you or even your team as a whole lack a certain expertise? How do you fill that gap?
Yeah, we do. And I've done this very recently. We just hired a new financial controller who starts with us in May. I'm really, really happy about her joining the team. That's awesome. And it's one of these roles that replaces something that I'm accountable for. So I always love those roles. But yeah, I lean on domain experts that I know and that I trust in areas that I'm not skilled in, or hiring something for the first time that's a big deal. For key hires, I might even rope in some advisors or board members to either help with the review of the role before we publish it and work on that together, or doing interviews. And a really short interview is a really good test of somebody's ability to get something across in a small space of time. For some other roles where we're finding it tricky or is really competitive, or we can't find quite the caliber of candidates that we're looking for, we do engage specialist recruiters as well. And those recruiters, like, for example, could be design or something specific in engineering. And they have networks and they have expertise that they've built up over a lot of years, which is really, really helpful. But the key thing is to ask for help, and people will surprise you. They'll step in and help you in these roles.
Good. And specific to you and how you manage your time, where do you get involved as the CEO? I understand you're maybe 40, currently 10 roles are open. That may be much bigger than that in the near future. Do you screen resumes? Do you go on LinkedIn trying to find people? Are you there for the first, second interview? Where do you plug in, I guess?
Like, it kind of depends on the role, and hiring is hard and it takes a lot of time. And I don't think there's any way to shortcut any of those times. There's lots of tools, and I was listening to this round peg thing earlier. I was like, that's brilliant. But broadly, I set up the team for success, and that's by creating a solid foundation of culture and values, and ensuring that there's alignment within the team, but also ensuring that it works with the strategy. And that we have prioritized our hiring needs appropriately, because, there's no point bringing in somebody into the team if the environment isn't there for them to be a success, or they don't have the tools they need or to achieve their goals. And that's just a disaster when you do that. Equally, not all problems are solved by hiring an additional person, even if that's what the team thinks is needed. It can, in fact, create more work than they anticipate. Another thing that I do is that I lead strategic employer branding initiatives. So, for example, partnerships with educational institutes. So we just formed a strategic partnership with TU, which is an Irish university, and we are actively engaged with their product management and their executive MBA class at the moment. And that is, a thing that we can do to get out ahead of roles that we haven't even started hiring yet, and there's the other thing that I can do is really, because I am still involved in the marketing function of the business, is to ensure that all our marketing initiatives are showcasing the capabilities of our team and the culture appropriately, so that we're set up to attract the type of caliber of candidate that we need. But I do participate in interviews as well, and I lead key hires that are specifically ones that are replacing anything I'm doing.
Awesome. You mentioned culture a few times just now, and Justin just mentioned how this is key and important. I think early on, right, you're still below 50 employees. Your personality, your way of doing things can probably shape a lot of that culture at some point if things keep going really well. You as an individual will have less and less influence because you're not going to be there with every person on the day-to-day. Have you started thinking about that, how to continue to shape the culture in an intentional way through hiring, through onboarding, and through other means?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot about this. And the key thing is that culture is an enormously powerful tool, right? And it has to be intentional in order to actually help you find the people who will enjoy doing the work in the way that will actually help you achieve your mission. Like, it is as intrinsic to the mission and the heart of the business as that. It puts rocket fuel into your mission. I think that's a key thing, and you have to be intentional about the behaviors that you want to reward, and you need to put structures in place to reward those behaviors, so that you can grow fast and achieve your growth strategy. And the only way to do that is to take me out of the equation. I'm not scalable, right? But yes, I can influence the culture, but it's not just me. It's the team. You need a hiring strategy that preserves your culture as you scale. and is authentic to your company and represents your company well and the best bits of it, as well as it, encouraging the behaviors that you all need to get better at as well. So like for us, our mission is to be the world's best enterprise video commerce platform, and that forms everything that happens out of that. All the strategic initiatives come from that ambition. Our values are quality, collaboration, and innovation. And we are design-led. Storytelling is incredibly important to us. We do big impossible things that are world-class and that are pushing industry forward. Now, if you don't enjoy those things, you are not going to enjoy working with us. And that's, we feel good about these things. It's so hard, I think, to articulate your culture, but it's such an important thing to do because it's such a powerful tool. And there, you have to think about ceremonies that you can introduce to reinforce that scale past you.
Claire, can you, because it's obvious with you just talking that you're very precise. I'm sure everybody in your company knows what the goal is, what the values are, at a kind of maybe bigger abstract way. Can you give us example of things, like very concrete things, practical things that you've put in place, maybe that you weren't doing when you were 5, 6, that you're starting to put in place because the team is growing and you need to ensure that culture kind of trickles down and is absorbed into new people and the rest of the team?
Yeah, I mean, there's some things that we do that are, and this is specifically around onboarding and building relationships in a remote working environment, right? Because the hiring and the start of the recruitment process is just one part, but actually making sure it's successful the whole way through is another thing. So we do our best to sort of create environments that encourage collaboration, encourage innovation, encourage creativity. And that's difficult when everyone's on a Zoom call, right? So you really do need to think about, especially when you're hiring a ton of people at the same time, you're not just building a relationship with them, they need to build relationships with each other. And because we are remote first, we put a lot of effort into scheduling informal events that change up the environment a little bit. So we've had magic shows, we have escape rooms, cocktail classes. We've been to Venice together. We're going to Buenos Aires next week on a tour. And then there's other things that we use. And I think it's about creating an environment that's slightly different. There's a tool called Kumo Space that we use, which is like an immersive video chat space where you can spatially sort of wander around and get involved in different conversations. But those are really important things to schedule and not to forget to make time for. We run our own quarterly innovation days as well. We call them lab days. And we just ran a very successful one that was our first fully remote one for a CSR partner of ours, for Fashion Relief TV and Oxfam. And the teams were tasked with coming up with and presenting roadmap ideas that would solve some specific issues that they were having. Some of these will be brought into the roadmap, some won't. But the real value was creating the space for collaboration, creativity, and for people to get to know each other that don't know each other. I think that helps with culture.
And you made the choice, and I'm sure COVID was a big part of it, but you've made the choice of saying we're going to be a remotely driven company first. Everybody works from home and we'll make it work that way. Why did you make that choice? Do you think that's going to continue for the next 2 years? And can you talk about some of the challenge benefit of that?
Yeah, I think like one of our strategic initiatives at Axonista is to become leaders at remote working. We were already embracing it. And I think remote working opens up a wider selection candidates that you may not have been previously available to. So you're talking about diversity of perspectives. You want to enable that in a way where if you're like so where I am, right, I'm surrounded by Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, Airbnb, and that's within 5 minutes of my apartment. I am competing with them for talent. And I need to think about what are some things that I can do that we can differentiate as a company that's exciting, that people are into, that we can learn more about. And we collaborate closely with a not-for-profit called Grow Remote in Ireland, who are all about making remote work accessible for all. And we find out the more that we learn about remote working, the more we find out how much there is to learn about remote working. But we do believe it is something that will stay long-term. We always believe in meeting up and being, gatherings are very, very important. There's nothing like standing around a whiteboard with a bunch of people and hashing out ideas. But I think the key thing about COVID is that informal, serendipitous community networking is gone, and forming new relationships, both from funding, hiring, but all of those things. It's just harder over video calls. So we really need to try and think about what are we doing? How are we doing communication? What are some other things that we can do? How do we become leaders in remote working? So but we do believe in it, and we think, as a team, we really enjoy it.
Awesome. Okay. Can you give me, you mentioned hiring takes lots of time. You can't really shortcut it. What percentage of your time would you say is dedicated to hiring, interviewing, maybe a bit of onboarding as well? And do you see that growing, staying the same in the future?
It's a lot of time that goes into it. Again, it's about creating that foundation, and enabling the team and empowering them to go and find great people that they will enjoy working with as well. But that will also share our mission and work well in an environment that we have. My leadership style is to encourage leadership in others and grow that capability and grow their confidence, and create career paths for them. And we also need to bring in expertise into the team. Like there's people on our team where I'm like, I've taught you everything I know. I need to bring somebody else in here to help you get to the next stage. And we're at that stage where we are bringing in senior people across different departments. So it's incredibly important to do that, and spend the time thinking about it deeply, and thinking about the type of team that you would like to, visualizing type of team that you want to have. Like, what are the skills and the backgrounds of that team? What do they look like? Do they represent your users, your customers? And are they, can you actually visualize that? If you visualize that, you can work back from there. And
just for, founders, CEO out there starting a company, I just wanted them to get a sense. Is that 25% of your time? Is it 10%? Is it 50%? Just a barometer there.
I probably spend most of my time on the, I have a dedicated people operations person on our team, and she's great. And we also have an external advisor that we work with as well, and they're great. And we scale them up and down as we need them. And then our team is involved. So for me, where I spend my time on hiring is mostly on the strategy side. It's the hiring strategy, making sure everyone's aligned. And I couldn't spend more time than I am. I think it's so important to do that and to really lean into it.
Good.
Hello, Alistair.
Hey. Hi. You may notice this incredibly colorful background. Anybody who's been to Montreal for Startupfest recognizes the hot pink weird locations that we make over. So out of nostalgia, I figured I'd change that. Fascinating to hear this. And I love the fact that we have these three facets, rapidly growing, organic hiring, focus on culture, competing with the big folks. I have $1.5 billion valuation, and I speak for the candidates. Guillaume, I know you've been through this yourself, and while you were doing the job of interviewing Claire today, what is the biggest thing that you've seen in your years in the startup world that makes the difference between a company that hires really well for growth and a company that fails?
I would say two things. One, and Justin mentioned that a little bit, but really leveraging your personal network. And I mean personal, yes, you as a founder, CEO, but then, if you recruit the right people, co-founder, the first few hires, they also have a personal network, and type A caliber employees will bring on their type A caliber friend, ex-colleague, and that other day. So that, I would say that's one thing for sure. The second thing is I'm very big on process. I truly believe that if you have a strong process, a way to evaluate that is not very subjective or random, as hard as that is to do, and that everybody on your team understands it, the way you evaluate one candidate is very similar to another one. Obviously, you adapt that for different roles, but then you can start seeing the difference between two candidates. And the more you do, the more it's there. I would say those two things I would focus on.
That's excellent advice. Well, thank you, Claire, for joining us all the way from Ireland, where I'm sure it's like early afternoon there. You're almost done for the day, or you just got hours and hours of work?
It's a nice day, and I'm going to go out for a walk.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. Hopefully we can welcome you in person to Montreal one of these years for Startupfest, or I'll get over to Ireland sometime soon. But we really appreciate you sharing this insight. Congratulations on the rapid growth. I know I mentioned QVC TBS. I don't want to mention too much about what you have in the pipeline, but it's amazing to see how far you've grown this business. Not on your own, but like with very modest resources, to something where millions of people don't know they're using your stuff every day. That's got to be quite an accomplishment. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. And thanks, Guillaume, for the chat.